How are you guys doing? My name's Kent Tilley. Welcome to K4. If you haven't already, please subscribe if you like this video, and if not, just leave, I guess. One of the most important decisions that you have to make in retirement is when to take CPP and OAS. And today I'm going to talk about when to take Old Age Security or OAS. It's a pretty important decision. And the first thing that we really need to talk about is, what is OAS? And once we understand what it is and how it works, then we can start talking about why maybe we should take it as early as possible, or why there might be some certain reasons that we should actually delay taking it for a little bit longer. So I'm going to talk about two scenarios where you should 100% every single time take OAS as early as possible, and then there is one scenario where you should always delay. If you're in this scenario, then you should never take it that early, because it'll be like you're throwing money in the garbage. And then everything else is sort of up to your interpretation. So when I'm planning with people, one of the main things that I ask when I'm sort of teaching between choosing decision A or decision B is I say, maybe this is going to end up working out better financially for you, or odds are that that's going to work better for you financially. But which one of these two scenarios is actually going to allow you to sleep better at night? Because that's something that I try and do with my clients, is like, maybe it's not necessarily about how much money, you're going to have a little bit more money if you do this, but what's going to make you feel better, make you more comfortable, less stressed out. I think life is more enjoyable when we're not stressed out. If the last 18 months have taught me anything, I absolutely hate the anxiety that all of this brings. So why not reduce our anxiety levels? So what is OAS? OAS is one of Canada's 3 major pension plans. This one is for anybody that was or is a Canadian resident. Anybody that was a Canadian citizen or resident between the ages of 18 and 65 for at least 10 of those years is going to be entitled to some amount of old age security. If you've lived in Canada for 40 of those years out of the 47, so 65 minus 18 is 47. If you've lived in Canada for at least 40 of those years, you will be entitled to 100% of your old age security. You get asked a lot, are you allowed to get OAS if you live outside of Canada? Yes, you are, as long as you were a resident or citizen of Canada for at least 20 of those years. Now, the other thing that we need to look at is you're entitled to full OAS if you lived in Canada for 40 of those 47 years. But what if you were only in Canada for 20 of those years? Then you're entitled to 50% of OAS, because 20 divided by 40 is 50%, so you're entitled to 50% of the benefit. 10 years, 10 divided by 40 is 25%. 30 divided by 40 is 75%. Now, I think that I learned something the other day, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's starting to make a little bit more sense now, is every time I read about OAS and, expats or moving to another country, it always says stuff about how other countries have sort of a relationship with Canada where the benefits are sort of intermingled, so they have like an agreement or a treaty with one another. So I am pretty sure that if, let's say, you lived in the UK until you were 45 years old, and then you moved to Canada at 45 and retired here, so you lived here for 20 years, you're entitled to 50% of OAS. Well, you will also be entitled to a pension from the UK, which I believe is basically identical to what you're not getting in OAS. So it's sort of interesting how they work that way. They just make it so that no matter where you are, you're basically getting the pension that you should be entitled to. So if that kind of makes a little bit of sense. I want to talk about somebody that has lived in Canada for their entire lives and they intend on retiring in Canada. Just to make this easier, if that's not you, you should probably talk to a professional about what to do and when to take it. Now there are two major factors that come into play that make it harder to decide when to take OAS other than just straight up taking it at 65 years old. Right now, if you're going to get maximum OAS, then if you take it at 65, you're going to get $626.49 per month. And this number is completely taxable and indexed with inflation. So right now, because inflation is going to be huge, who knows, OAS might start going up like absolute crazy. The Liberals also just tabled some sort of legislation that says if you're over 75 or 75 and above next July, then you're going to get a 10% increase in your OAS. Who knows if this is actually going to stick, because there's an election coming up. These things can change. I mean, OAS and new governments coming in can change the rules whenever they want. So if that happens, we'll discuss it. But I wouldn't necessarily count on that happening. Just because they say it's going to happen doesn't mean it's actually going to happen. Now, the two major factors that we need to consider here is something called the OAS clawback, and another thing is that we can receive a greater benefit if we decide to delay taking OAS. So for every month after you turn 65 that you decide not to take it, you can get a 0.6% increase in the amount that you're going to get, or 7.2% a year. If you delay from 65 to 70, that means that you're actually going to get a 36% increase in old age security payments for the remainder of your life. However, you won't receive them in between the ages of 65 and 70. So, first let's talk about the clawback. A lot of people know about the clawback, but it doesn't actually affect that many Canadians. So what happens is OAS is available to all Canadians. It doesn't matter if you never paid taxes in your entire life. If you're a loser, you lived in your grandma's basement from 18 until 65 and played Dungeons and Dragons with your buddies and never had a job, whatever, sat in your underwear, and you would still be entitled to full OAS. But the Canadian government says, you know what, I don't think that Canadians that are earning over a specific amount really need this extra pension that we're giving. We can save some money by not giving it to higher income earners, because it works out to, like $7,000 or $7,500 a year for everybody that's 65 or older. So how the clawback works is if you make over $79,054 per year, then your old age security is going to start getting reduced, so it won't be 626 anymore. And if you make over 129,581 as an individual, and this is before tax, so this is all of your income that's coming in, if you make that amount, you will no longer receive any OAS, okay? So if you make over that amount, then you won't receive any. And if you delay it, then you're going to get a pretty significant guaranteed increase, which also goes up with inflation. So at the beginning of the video, I talked about two reasons why we might want to for sure take it no matter what at age 65. And I have two reasons. The first and foremost is that you need the money, because this is a guaranteed source of income that you can get, and if you need the money, you obviously should take it so that it can help to make your life a little bit easier. I know that it's not easy for a lot of retirees and a lot of people in this country, so it's great that at least you can count on this. Also, if you're low income in retirement, and if you have a spouse that is in between the ages of 60 and 65, so 60 to 64, then you can get GIS, which is the Guaranteed Income Supplement. I've done another video on GIS, and I can do another one, of course. And your spouse can be entitled to the allowance if you're receiving GIS. So you cannot receive GIS unless you are receiving old age security. So that's going to enhance your income even more, especially if you need it, you're low income in your senior years, then take it no matter what. Now, another reason why you obviously want to take it for sure is if you do not have a long, time to live. Maybe you're ill, maybe a family history, maybe, I don't know, but something's going on where you know that you're not going to live for a very long time, because delaying it only works out if you live past, a certain age where the break-even point comes in, which is what I'm going to talk about next. So if you don't think that you're going to live, well into a ripe old age, I would certainly start to take OAS at an earlier age. However, there is one reason why you just never want to take it at 65, and I've seen people do this before, and it stresses me out, is if you are making a high income in those years. So let's say you're still working at 65 years old, you're making $200,000 a year, you go ahead and apply for old age security, you don't get it because it all gets clawed back, and then you also aren't entitled to the increase for delaying it because you already applied for it. So basically you've just thrown free money in the garbage because you thought you wanted to get what you were entitled to. So don't make that mistake, because it can be a very costly one. So now I want to get into a graph. Ryan will be kind enough to throw up my really fancy Excel spreadsheet up onto the screen, where I looked to see what the break-even point was for old age security. So I'll just take a look at my screen. Sorry for not looking at the camera. So if you take OAS at 65 years old, you get $626.49 a month, or $7,518 a year. At 66, you'll get $671.60 a month, or $8,059 a year. 67, $716.70, or $8,600 a year. At 68, you'll get $761.81 a month, or $9,142. At 69, you'll get $806.92 a month, or $9,683 a year. And at age 70, that 36% increase, you'll get $852.03 a month, or $10,224 per year. So where does the break-even point start coming into play is between the ages of 79 and 83. So if you delay 1 year to 66, it's going to break even at 79. 2 years, it's going to break even at 80. 3 years at 81. 4 years at 82. And 5 years at 83. And so if you live until 90, and I know that most people do not live till 90, but in a couple in Canada, the chances of one spouse living to the age of 90 is actually extremely high. So you kind of need to take that into account as well, because the chances of somebody living till 90, if you make it to 65, are actually about 50%. And then I don't remember what the actual math is on which percentage of a couple lives till 90, but it's quite high. So the difference at age 90, if you take it at 66, is an extra $6,000. At 67, it's almost $11,000. At 68, it's $14,795. At 69, it's $17,562. and at 70 it's 19,247. Now there are a few things that I did not take into account here, so we need to take these things into account if we're doing real individual planning. One thing is, what are your taxes going to be? What are your tax brackets in retirement going to be? Because we can plan around these, especially in those years between 65 and 70. Now, inflation's another thing that I can't necessarily account for, but if you delay and are getting an increased amount, then if it's also increasing with inflation, then delaying should actually be more beneficial because that amount is going up with inflation, and a bigger amount going up with inflation is higher than a smaller amount going up with the same inflation. So that's something that we need to think about. And then the last one is potential rate of return. So a lot of people are like, I'm amazing at investing. I'm the greatest investor in the world. So I'm going to take this money, I'm going to pay tax on it, and then I'm going to invest, and I'm going to guaranteed beat the 7.2% rate of return that is guaranteed to me. Which isn't necessarily the case. And I remember when I used to work for a big firm back in the day, we never talked about when to take CPP and OAS. It was always just like, get people to take it, get them to invest it so that we can make more money, so that my boss can make a whole bunch of money, and I can spend every afternoon driving home crying in my car on the Hyundai or whatever, which was super fun. I didn't cry that many times on my ride home, actually, but maybe a few near the end. But anyways, so yes, that is true. You can invest it. I mean, there are a lot more factors to consider just other than this is my money and I need it now, because I know that a lot of people take that into account. So this is actually something that you should plan for with a professional advisor that you trust, because in certain cases it can make a huge difference, because there are some sort of interesting planning strategies that you can account for when choosing when to take CPP, OAS, and potentially GIS. Because what might happen is maybe you have too much money in your RSP, and if you delay that to convert to a RIF until 71, then maybe you're going to be pulling out way more than you need. So something you might want to consider doing is not taking CPP and OAS between 65 and 70 years old, taking a bunch of money out of your RSP during those 5 years, not paying a whole bunch of tax on that amount, which then allows you to delay CPP and OAS, get that increased amount, and then pull less out of your RSP in the later years in your life, which should hopefully reduce your average tax bill over the course of your life. All of these things depend on your own personal circumstances, though. So just because your friend or your brother or your neighbor or anybody else decided to take CPP or OAS at 65 or 66 or whatever does not mean that that's what you should do. So please remember that whenever you're reading comments or something, is that it's all up to the individual and what your exact circumstances are. As always, if you want to talk to us about what we think, get our opinion on it, then please feel free to reach out to us at info@k4financial.ca. You can always visit our website, k4financial.ca. I think there's a way to get in touch with us on there, obviously. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. If you want to comment, we're happy to answer anything. Sometimes I don't see everything, but always love to see your comments. Thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you very soon.